Each organ system is crucial to maintaining our lives and completing even the simplest daily activities. The mere wiggle of a finger involves the integumentary, circulatory, muscular, and skeletal systems. One system, however, coordinates all the activities of these other systems, and without it we wouldn't be able to function at all. The nervous system. The nervous system coordinates the activity of the muscles, monitors the organs, processes sensory data, and is involved in every conceivable action. Catching a ball, for example, requires that your brain be instantly informed of the ball's trajectory and shape in order to coordinate the necessary interactions of sight and muscles. In the tips of your fingers, your nervous system can detect a difference of pressure of as little as 1/2 a gram, which is about the weight of the head of a pin, and a difference in temperature of as little as 1 degree Celsius, or about 2 degrees Fahrenheit. In fact, the nervous system is responsible for my ability to breathe and speak these words, and your ability to hear and understand them. The organs of the nervous system are few in number: the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves. The organs are separated into two divisions: the central nervous system, or CNS, which includes the brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, or PNS, which includes all the nerves that extend outside the central nervous system and serve the limbs and organs. The nervous system consists of two types of cells: neurons and neuroglia. Neurons are the primary cells of the nervous system. Neuroglia are secondary cells involved in nourishment and structural support. What neurons actually do is transmit signals very, very rapidly. This is accomplished in two ways: within the neuron itself and between neurons. A typical neuron is composed of a cell body, dendrites, and axons. The dendrites carry impulses towards the cell body. The axons transmit them away from the cell body. The contact between one neuron's axon and another neuron's dendrites is called a synapse. You can see how an impulse is transmitted from one nerve cell to another. Some neurons have over 1,000 dendrites apiece, enabling connections to tens of thousands of other neurons simultaneously. There are three main types of neurons: sensory neurons, motor neurons, and interneurons. Sensory neurons connect our senses of touch, odor, taste, sound, and vision to the central nervous system, that is, the brain and spinal cord. Motor neurons transmit impulses from the central nervous system to the muscles and glands that carry out the response. While most neurons are very short, the axons connecting your spinal cord to your foot can be as much as 1 meter long, although only a few micrometers in diameter. Interneurons are found exclusively within the spinal cord and brain. It is estimated that the human brain contains 100 billion interneurons, averaging 1,000 synapses apiece. That amounts to 100 trillion synapses. It takes 25 billion synapses just to screw in a light bulb. All right, I made that up, but you get the idea. If you could unravel one human brain into a single straight line of neurons, they would stretch up to 6 football fields in length. Electrical impulses travel through neurons, at about 100 meters per second. This is equivalent to over 200 miles per hour, the speed of a bullet train. The nerve impulse crosses a synapse in 1/10,000th of a second. Between catching a ball and throwing it again, only a moment later, many millions of neurons may have been activated, and hundreds of complicated processes have sent information, processed the information, and acted upon it. The central nervous system consists of the brain and spinal cord. Weighing about 3 pounds and roughly the size of a coconut, the brain, also called the encephalon, fills the top half of the head and is the largest and most complex mass of nerve tissue in the body. Composed of multiple interacting parts, the brain regulates widely different bodily functions, from involuntary processes like blood pressure, balance, and appetite, to voluntary processes like walking, thinking, and feeling. The cerebrum is by far the largest of these parts, accounting for 2/3 of the brain's size. It is divided in halves, called the left and right hemispheres, which are each further subdivided into 4 regions or lobes. The 2 halves are connected by a thick bundle of 200 to 250 million nerve fibers, called the corpus callosum. The surface of the cerebrum is covered with a layer of nerve cells about 6 or 7 millimeters thick, called the cerebral cortex, and is arranged in many folds and ridges called convolutions, which allow for the largest surface area possible within such a relatively small space. If the cerebrum was unfolded, it would equal approximately half a square meter, the size of a typical road map. Specific brain functions are, to some extent, localized in various lobes. Thinking, creating, and control of body movement occurs in the frontal lobes. Sense of direction, recognition of objects and their uses, and collection of sensory data received by the body takes place in the parietal lobes. Located next to our ears, the temporal lobes regulate hearing, speech, and memory. The occipital lobes, located at the back of the head, receive and interpret information from the eyes. In general, sensory information from the left side of the body is processed in the right side of the brain, and information from the right side of the body is processed in the left side of the brain. Among other things, this means that damage to the right side of the brain, caused by a stroke, for example, will affect the left side of the body. The cerebellum is located under and behind the cerebrum and is the second largest part of the brain. It is involved in computing movements, especially those based on visual feedback, directing attention, measuring time, and many other motor and cognitive functions. The interbrain, or diencephalon, is located above the brain stem and includes the thalamus and hypothalamus, 2 structures that are essential to life. The thalamus is like a relay station for nerve impulses in the brain. Most sensory data arrives here first to be sorted and routed to the appropriate area of the cerebral cortex for processing. The hypothalamus is involved in the control of body temperature, hunger, thirst, and our internal clock that regulates sleep and wakefulness. It is also involved in the control of emotions and sexual activity. The brain stem is the brain's stalk and connects the brain to the spinal cord. It is responsible for such basic unconscious functions as breathing, heartbeat, and blood pressure. Scientists view the brain stem as the simplest or earliest part of our brains, and it's even been called the reptile brain because some animals, like reptiles, who appear early on the evolutionary scale, possess entire brains that resemble our brainstem. 12 pairs of nerves, called cranial nerves, emerge from the brainstem. These nerves primarily control functions of the head, face, and sensory organs, and are part of the peripheral nervous system which connects the brain to the body. The spinal cord consists of nerve cells and is enclosed in and protected by the vertebral column or backbone. 31 pairs of nerves belonging to the peripheral nervous system branch out from the vertebrae in the backbone. The function of all the spinal nerves is to transmit impulses to and from the spinal cord and the periphery of the body. The brain and spinal cord are constantly bathed in a cerebral spinal fluid that originates from circulating blood plasma. Cerebral spinal fluid also cushions the brain and spinal cord and is found in large spaces deep within the brain called ventricles. The brain and spinal cord are covered by special protective membranes called meninges, which provide support and stabilization of these delicate tissues. The middle layer of the meninges is called arachnoid, which means spider in Greek because it resembles a spider web. Meningitis, a sometimes fatal condition, is an infection of the meninges. The peripheral nervous system consists of nerves that extend outside the central nervous system to serve the limbs and organs. The peripheral nervous system is divided into two main systems, the somatic or voluntary nervous system and the autonomic or involuntary nervous system. The somatic nervous system facilitates control of body movements. In contrast, the autonomic nervous system is responsible for controlling involuntary functions, also called visceral functions, including digestion, respiration, metabolism, and blood pressure. There are connections between the two systems, however, and thoughts can influence visceral reactions and vice versa, as illustrated by the phrase, "The thought of that makes me sick." The autonomic nervous system is further subdivided into the sympathetic division and parasympathetic division. The sympathetic nervous system responds to impending danger or stress and is responsible for the increase of one's heartbeat and blood pressure. The parasympathetic nervous system is evident when a person is resting and feels relaxed and is responsible for such things as the constriction of the pupil, the slowing of the heart, the dilation of blood vessels. While catching a ball, for example, the autonomic nervous system controls breathing, heartbeat, balance, and other unconscious actions that are necessary for this activity, while the somatic nervous system allows me to consciously turn, raise my arms, and catch. Most impulses travel from a sensory node like a fingertip to the spinal cord and then to the brain for processing and response. But some of these impulses terminate in the spinal cord itself. This is called a reflex, and it's one of the body's defense mechanisms that provides for fast reaction. For example, when you accidentally touch something hot and immediately pull your hand away, the heat sensation travels along the sensory nerve to the spinal cord, while the impulse to jerk your hand away travels instantly from the spinal cord back along a motor nerve without engaging your brain at all. As we have seen, the nervous system has a hand, so to speak, in almost everything we do, whether we are conscious of it or not. The nervous system also makes possible those activities which we most closely identify with our very sense of self: memory, thought, emotion, speech. Some of the most recent attempts to create artificial intelligence have yoked together multiple computers, to to use as many as 1 billion processing units, each processing unit simulating 1 neuron. But the ancient, ordinary human brain, with billions of neurons, is still many times more powerful than the best artificial intelligence yet developed. Just think about that.